Wake up. Please wake up. Those words would echo through Carlo Gambino's nightmares for years to come. The woman bleeding out on the restaurant sidewalk wasn't supposed to be there. She wasn't supposed to shield his daughters with her own body. And she definitely wasn't supposed to have a police badge hidden in her blood-soaked jacket. The gunshot cracked through the autumn air like breaking glass. 1 second, Carlo Gambino was reaching for his daughter's hands outside Marcello's, the upscale Italian restaurant where he'd broken every security protocol to give Amanda and Alicia one normal evening. The next second, chaos erupted. A figure lunged from his left. Not toward him. Toward the twins. Mary Hernandez moved with the precision of someone who'd done this before. Her body a human shield between 2 7-year-old girls and a bullet that had Carlo's name written on it. The impact spun her sideways. Her expensive jacket, too nice for a civilian, Carlo would realize later, bloomed with crimson as she crumpled to the pavement. Amanda and Alicia dropped to their knees beside her, their small hands pressing desperately against the growing red stain on her chest. Wake up. Please wake up. Amanda screamed, her voice raw with terror. Alicia said nothing, just stared, her blue blazer now streaked with a stranger's blood. From 20 feet away, Carlo Gambino, the man whose name made mayors sweat and senators whisper, sprinted toward his daughters with an expression no one in his organization had ever seen on his face. Pure, unfiltered fear. Have you ever seen a monster realize he's not the most dangerous thing in the room? If this story moved you and reminded you that even in a world of crime and violence, compassion can still exist, give this video a like and share it with someone who believes that one selfless act can rewrite fate. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about courage, redemption, and unexpected heroes. Carlo's hand found the woman's throat, checking for a pulse. Weak. Fading. His fingers brushed against something inside her jacket. Cold. Metal. Geometric. He pulled it out slowly. A badge gleamed under the streetlights. Detective Mary Hernandez. Metropolitan Police Department. Organized Crime Division. The blood drained from Carlo's face faster than it was draining from hers. His men were already securing the perimeter, 3 of them dragging the shooter's body into a black SUV, 2 more waving off terrified restaurant patrons, and his consigliere, Sal, barking orders into his phone to lock down every exit within 6 blocks. But Carlo couldn't move. The woman who just took a bullet for his children was the cop who'd been hunting him for 8 months. Inside St. Vincent's Hospital. 47 minutes later. She's stable, but barely, the trauma surgeon explained, glancing nervously at the armed men now guarding the entire 4th floor. The bullet punctured her lung and nicked the subclavian artery. Another inch and... She lives, Carlo interrupted, his voice cold as winter steel. Whatever it costs. Understood. The surgeon nodded and fled. Carlo stood at the observation window, watching Mary Hernandez's unconscious form surrounded by monitors and tubes. Amanda and Alicia refused to leave, their small bodies curled in chairs beside her bed, still wearing their blood-stained clothes. Sal approached cautiously. Boss. We got confirmation. She's not just any cop. Carlo's jaw tightened. She's deep undercover. Been tracking our financial operations for the feds. Her report was supposed to go to the DA next week. Sal lowered his voice. She had you, Carlo. She had the accounts, the shell companies, the offshore transfers. Everything. The words hung in the sterile air like a death sentence. Carlo's hand curled into a fist against the glass. And yet, he whispered more to himself than Sal. When the gun went off, she chose them. From inside the room, Amanda lifted her head. Even through the window, even in her exhaustion, she locked eyes with her father. Her message was clear. You can't hurt her. 72 hours earlier. What Carlo didn't know. Mary Hernandez sat in an unmarked surveillance van 3 blocks from Gambino Tower, reviewing the final pieces of her investigation. 8 months of work. 14 false identities. Countless nights wondering if she'd wake up in the Hudson River. And now, finally, she had him. Bank records linking Carlo Gambino to $47 million in laundered money. Shell corporations in Delaware and the Caymans. Payoffs to union officials, contractors, and 2 city councilmen. You're a ghost, Mary, her handler said through the headset. No one even knows you exist. That's what makes you perfect for this. She nodded, her eyes scanning the photographs pinned to the van's wall. Carlo at charity galas. Carlo leaving his lawyer's office. Carlo with his daughters at their private school. The daughters. Mary's hand hovered over that photo. Amanda and Alicia Gambino. 7 years old. Honor roll students. Obsessed with horses and Harry Potter. They didn't choose their father. Final surveillance passed tomorrow night, her handler continued. Then we move to prosecution. 3 weeks. Mary. 3 weeks and Carlo Gambino goes away for 20 years. Mary's finger traced the outline of the twins in the photograph. 3 weeks. She had no idea that in 72 hours, she'd be making a choice that would destroy everything she'd worked for, and save the only 2 people in Carlo Gambino's world who still believed in goodness. Back to the hospital present. Carlo's phone buzzed. A text from his lawyer. Federal activity increasing. They're looking for their missing detective. Clock is ticking. He could make Mary Hernandez disappear. Permanently. 1 word to Sal. 1 unmarked grave. Problem solved. Instead, Carlo watched his daughters sleep in chairs too big for them, their hands still reaching toward the woman who'd given up everything to keep them breathing. The badge sat heavy in his pocket. Detective Mary Hernandez had been 1 decision away from destroying him. And he was 1 decision away from becoming the monster everyone already believed he was. From the bed, Mary's eyes flickered open. 3 minutes earlier, Carlo Gambino had broken 4 of his own rules that evening. Rule number 1, never bring the twins into the city after dark. Rule number 2, never eat at the same restaurant twice in 1 month. Rule number 3, never travel without a 3-car security detail. Rule number 4, never, ever let your guard down. But it was Amanda and Alicia's 7th birthday, and for once in his carefully controlled life, Carlo Gambino wanted to feel like a normal father instead of a walking target. Daddy, you promised we could get the tiramisu. Amanda bounced on her toes outside Marcello's, her blue blazer catching the glow of the antique street lamps. Alicia, quieter but just as excited, tugged on his sleeve. And you said we could stay up past bedtime. Carlo looked down at his daughters, their mother's eyes, their mother's smile, and mercifully, none of his darkness, and felt something crack in his chest. Sophia would have loved this. His wife had been gone 3 years. Cancer didn't care if you were a saint or a kingpin. It took what it wanted. These girls were all he had left of her. All he had left that was good. All right, he smiled, a real one this time. Tiramisu. But if either of you tells Uncle Sal I let you have dessert before dinner, I'm denying everything. The twins giggled, and for exactly 2 minutes and 43 seconds, Carlo Gambino forgot he was a man with enemies. Across the street, 47 yards away, Mary Hernandez leaned against the iron railing outside the vintage bookshop, her phone pressed to her ear in fake conversation. She wasn't there by accident. For 8 months, she'd studied Carlo's patterns like scripture. His security rotations. His meeting schedules. His safe houses. The man was a ghost when he wanted to be. Paranoid, calculated, untouchable. Except when it came to his daughters. Every third Thursday, without fail, Carlo would take Amanda and Alicia somewhere. A museum, a park, a restaurant. Different locations, but always the same pattern. Minimal security, civilian clothes, and a desperation to give them normalcy. It was his only vulnerability. And Mary had been documenting it. Target in sight, she whispered into the wire hidden in her jacket collar. Marcello's restaurant. 2 subjects with him. Confirming visual. She stopped mid-sentence. Her training kicked in before her conscious mind could catch up. Years of academy drills, tactical psychology, and street instincts compressed into a single observation. Wrong movement. Wrong angle. Wrong reflection. Across the street, 50 yards north, a figure shifted in the shadow of a delivery van. Too still. Too focused. Too deliberate. Mary's eyes tracked the motion, a hand emerging from the darkness, something metallic catching the light. Gun. Her pulse spiked. Possible hostile. North position. I'm moving to. The figure stepped into the lamplight for a fraction of a second. Mary's blood went cold. She recognized him. Viktor Koslovsky. Bratva enforcer. Confirmed kills. 12. Preferred method. Long-range assassination. This wasn't surveillance. This was an execution. 2 minutes, 14 seconds before the shot. Carlo knelt down to tie Alicia's shoelace. She'd never learned to make a proper knot, always leaving them loose like her mother used to. There, he said, double knotting it. Now you won't trip during dessert negotiations. Amanda laughed. Alicia beamed. And Carlo, for one perfect moment, forgot that men like Viktor Koslovsky existed. Across the street, Mary's mind calculated trajectories with mechanical precision. Viktor's angle. Elevated. 45 degrees. Target sight line. Clear shot through the restaurant patio gap. Distance. Manageable for a professional. He's going for Carlo. Her handler's voice crackled through the wire. Detective Hernandez, what's your status? Mary didn't answer. Because she'd just watched Victor's rifle barrel shift 6 inches to the left. Not toward Carlo. Toward the twins. Her stomach dropped. No. No. The thought barely formed before the truth hit her like a freight train. Victor wasn't there to kill Carlo. He was there to destroy him. To make Carlo Gambino watch his daughters die the same way Carlo had destroyed Victor's brother 3 years ago in a shipment dispute that ended with fire and closed caskets. This is revenge. Mary's hands moved to her weapon on pure instinct. But she was too far. 47 yards, obstructed sight line, moving civilians in the way. She'd never make the shot. Victor would. 1 minute, 38 seconds before the shot. Can we walk around the block first? Amanda asked, pointing toward the Fountain Plaza. I want to see if the lights are on. Carlo checked his watch. Security protocol said no. Common sense said no. Every survival instinct he'd honed over 25 years in the underworld said absolutely not. But Amanda was looking up at him with those eyes, Sophia's eyes, and Carlo Gambino, the man who'd ordered executions without flinching, couldn't say no to his 7-year-old daughter. 5 minutes, he agreed. Then dessert. They walked toward the fountain, directly into Victor's kill zone. Mary's position. Detective Hernandez, respond. What is your status? Mary's handler sounded irritated now, but his voice was white noise. Her entire world had narrowed to 3 points. 1. Victor's finger moving toward the trigger. 2. 2 little girls walking into the crossfire. 3. The distance between her and them, 32 yards, 9 seconds at a full sprint. 9 seconds. Her badge felt like lead in her jacket. She'd spent 8 months building this case. 8 months becoming someone else, sacrificing relationships, sleep, and safety to bring down Carlo Gambino's empire. This was the night she was supposed to gather final confirmation. One last surveillance pass before the DA's office moved to prosecute. 3 weeks, and Carlo Gambino would be in federal prison for 20 years. Justice. The law. Everything she'd sworn to uphold. And all she had to do was nothing. Let the Bratva handle it. Let the underworld cannibalize itself. Walk away. It's not your job to save a criminal's children. 43 seconds before the shot. Amanda and Alicia reached the fountain, their laughter carrying through the evening air. Carlos stood behind them, his hands in his pockets, his guard finally, fatally, down. Mary's decision. She saw Victor's stance shift, saw his breathing slow, the telltale pause before a shooter takes the shot, saw the exact moment his finger began to squeeze the trigger. And Mary Hernandez stopped thinking like a cop. They're 7 years old. Her body moved before her mind could second-guess it. She launched herself forward, her badge forgotten, her gun holstered, her mission abandoned. 32 yards. 20. 10. 17 seconds before the shot. Carlo turned, sensing something wrong. He saw a woman sprinting toward them. Brunette, athletic build, expensive jacket, panic in her eyes. His hand moved toward his concealed weapon. Too slow. Everything was happening too slow. 3 seconds before the shot. Mary crashed into the space between Victor's sightline and the twins. Her arms extended. Her body became a wall. The shot. Crack. The bullet hit Mary Hernandez in the left shoulder, tore through muscle and bone, and exploded out her back in a spray of red. She wrapped herself around Amanda and Alicia, her momentum carrying all 3 of them to the ground. The twins screamed. Carlo's weapon cleared his holster, but Victor was already gone, melting into the darkness like smoke. And Mary Hernandez, Detective 3rd Grade, Organized Crime Division, 8 months deep in the most important investigation of her career, lay bleeding on a sidewalk, her arms still wrapped protectively around the daughters of the man she'd sworn to destroy. Her vision blurred. The twins were crying, their voices distant and distorted. Carlo's face appeared above her, His expression twisted in shock and confusion. And Mary's last conscious thought before the darkness took her was simple. They're okay. I chose right. Carlo's POV. Immediate aftermath. He'd seen death before. Ordered it. Caused it. Become numb to it. But watching this stranger, this woman he didn't know, bleed out on the pavement after saving his children shattered something in him. Amanda, Alicia, get back! He barked, but the twins wouldn't move. They clung to Mary's unconscious body, their small hands trying desperately to stop the bleeding. Wake up. Please wake up. Amanda sobbed. Carlo's men materialized from the shadows. Sal, Mickey, and Frankie securing the perimeter with military precision. Boss, we need to move. Sal shouted. Cops are 3 minutes out. But Carlo didn't move. He knelt beside the woman, checking her pulse. Faint. Thready. She's dying. His hand slipped inside her jacket, searching for ID, for a phone, for anything that would tell him who would throw themselves in front of a bullet for children that weren't theirs. His fingers brushed cold metal. He pulled it out slowly. Detective Mary Hernandez. Metropolitan Police Department. Organized Crime Division. The world stopped spinning. Carlo's eyes went from the badge to the woman to his daughters, still crying over her body. A cop. A cop saved my children. Sirens wailed in the distance. Boss. Sal grabbed his arm. We need to go now. Carlo stood, his mind racing through impossible calculations. He looked at the badge again. Organized Crime Division. She was hunting me. And she chose them anyway. Change of plans, Carlo said quietly, his voice deadly calm. We're taking her with us. Boss, she's a... I know what she is, Carlo interrupted, his eyes cold as winter. Get her in the car. Now. Call Dr. Petrov. Tell him we're coming to St. Vincent's, and I want the entire 4th floor cleared. No questions. No records. Sal stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Maybe he had. But as Carlo watched his men carefully lift Mary Hernandez's bleeding body into the SUV, as Amanda and Alicia climbed in beside her refusing to let go, as the sirens grew louder and the night grew darker, Carlo Gambino made a decision that would change everything. The cop who saved his daughters would not die tonight, even if it meant protecting his own hunter, even if it meant mercy for an enemy, even if it destroyed him. The sidewalk outside Marcello's looked like a war zone. Blood pooled in the cracks between cobblestones. Shattered glass glittered under streetlights. A woman's expensive briefcase lay abandoned near the fountain, its contents scattered, a phone, lipstick, and something that looked like surveillance photographs. Carlo's men moved with the efficiency of soldiers. Frankie swept the rooftops with thermal imaging. Mickey dismantled Victor's shooting position across the street, bagging shell casings and wiping down surfaces. Sal barked orders into 3 different phones simultaneously, coordinating the cleanup, rerouting traffic cameras, and making certain calls to certain people who ensured the police response would be delayed. But inside the black SUV, Carlo Gambino wasn't thinking about evidence or exposure. He was watching a woman die. Mary Hernandez lay across the back seat, her breathing shallow and wet. Blood soaked through the makeshift pressure bandages Sal had applied. Too much blood, too fast. Amanda knelt on the floor beside her, both hands pressed against the wound, her face streaked with tears and crimson. "Stay awake. Please stay awake," Amanda begged, her voice cracking. "We need you to stay awake." Alicia sat frozen in the corner, her blue blazer splattered red, her eyes wide and glassy. She hadn't spoken since the gunshot. Hadn't moved. Just stared at Mary's face like she was watching a ghost form in real time. Carlo had seen shock before. He recognized it. My daughters just watched someone take a bullet for them. The thought made his chest tighten in a way that had nothing to do with the adrenaline still coursing through his veins. "Boss, ambulance is 2 minutes out," Sal reported from the front seat. "But we got a problem. Cops are already establishing a perimeter. They're asking questions." "Handle it," Carlo said flatly. "How exactly do you want me to?" "I said handle it." Carlo's voice dropped to a register that made grown men reconsider their life choices. "No cops near that ambulance. No badges. No statements. We control this scene until we're ready to leave." "Understood." Sal nodded and climbed out, already dialing. Carlo turned back to Mary Hernandez. Her eyes fluttered open briefly. Unfocused, distant, drowning. "The girls." She whispered, the words barely audible over the sound of approaching sirens. Amanda sobbed harder. "We're okay. We're okay because of you." Mary's lips moved, trying to form words, but only blood came out. And Carlo Gambino, a man who'd built an empire on calculated violence, who'd ordered executions without losing sleep, who prided himself on emotional detachment, felt something he hadn't felt since Sophia's funeral. Helplessness. This woman was dying, and she'd chosen to die saving his children. A cop. She's a cop. The badge in his pocket felt radioactive. Every instinct screamed at him to think strategically. She was organized crime division. She'd been hunting him. If she survived, if she woke up, if she testified, no witnesses live. The rule had kept him breathing for 25 years. No witnesses. No exceptions. No mercy. But when he looked at Amanda, her small hands desperately trying to hold back death, he couldn't say it. Not even in his own head. Not in front of them. The ambulance arrived with a shriek of sirens and flashing lights. Paramedics burst from the vehicle, but Carlo's men intercepted them like a well-rehearsed play. "Private transport," Sal explained smoothly, flashing a badge that absolutely wasn't his. "Federal witness protection. You treat her, you follow our vehicle, but you don't ask questions and you sure as hell don't file reports. Clear." The lead paramedic, a weathered woman in her 50s who'd clearly seen enough of the city's darkness to know when to keep her mouth shut, nodded once. "Get her on the gurney. Now." They worked fast. 4 lines. Oxygen mask. Pressure bandages replaced with proper medical equipment. But when they tried to move Mary to the ambulance, Amanda refused to let go. No. She wrapped herself around Mary's arm, her grip fierce and desperate. "I'm staying with her." "Sweetheart, you can't," the paramedic began gently. "She saved us." Amanda's scream cut through the chaos like a knife. "She saved us and I'm not leaving her." Alicia finally moved. She stood, walked to her sister, and took Amanda's hand. Then she looked directly at her father with eyes that were far too old for 7 years. "Don't you dare take this away from us." The message was clear. Carlo felt something crack deeper in his chest. "They ride with her," he said quietly. The paramedics started to protest, but one look at Carlo's face, and the armed men surrounding the scene, changed her mind. "Fine. But they stay out of our way." Inside the ambulance, Mary Hernandez faded in and out of consciousness. Her vision swam between darkness and painful clarity. The twins. I saved the twins. Carlo Gambino's twins. Oh God. Oh God, what did I do? Her badge. Her case. 8 months of work. Gone. All of it gone in one impossible choice. Amanda's voice cut through the fog. "Is she going to die?" "Not if we can help it, honey," the paramedic said. But her tone wasn't reassuring. "Pulse is dropping. BP's at 80/50. We need to move now." The ambulance lurched forward. Carlo sat across from Mary, his daughters pressed against either side of her gurney, and watched the monitors with the focus of a man studying an opponent's weakness. Except Mary Hernandez wasn't his opponent anymore. She was something else entirely. Something he didn't have a word for. The cop who saved my children. The cop who could destroy everything I've built. The cop I should kill. The cop I can't. The monitor beside Mary's head began to beep faster. Then faster. Then. B. The single, sustained tone that meant only one thing. "She's coding," the paramedic shouted. "Starting compressions." Amanda screamed. Alicia's hand found her father's and squeezed so hard it hurt. And Carlo Gambino watched as the woman who'd taken a bullet for his daughters flatlined 6 feet away from him. "Don't you dare die." The thought was visceral, desperate, and completely irrational. Don't you dare die after doing something that impossibly stupid and brave. Don't you dare die and make me figure out what it means that a cop loved my daughters more than she loved the law. The paramedic's hands pressed down hard on Mary's chest. Once. Twice. 3 times. The monitor stayed flat. Mary Hernandez's heart restarted on the 3rd round of compressions. The monitor's flat line stuttered, hiccuped, then found a rhythm, weak and irregular, but alive. Amanda collapsed against her sister, sobbing with relief. Alicia finally spoke, her first word since the shooting. She came back. Carlos said nothing, but his hand remained locked around his daughter's, and for the first time in 15 years, he wasn't sure if he was relieved or terrified. St. Vincent's Hospital, 11:47 p.m. The 4th floor of St. Vincent's Hospital had never been so secure. Or so empty. Within 20 minutes of Mary Hernandez's arrival, Carlo's people had transformed the critical care wing into a fortress. 8 men in maintenance uniforms and hospital scrubs, all carrying concealed weapons, stood at strategic positions throughout the floor. The elevators required keycard access that only Carlo's people controlled. The stairwell doors had been malfunctioning since 11:30 p.m. To anyone asking, the floor was undergoing emergency fumigation. In reality, it was a cage. And Mary Hernandez was either the prisoner or the most protected cop in the city. Carlo hadn't decided which yet. Dr. Anton Petrov, a brilliant surgeon who'd patched up more mafia soldiers than he cared to count, emerged from the operating room at 1:14 a.m. His scrubs were stained red. "She's alive," he said simply. "Bullet fragmented on impact. I removed 17 pieces of metal from her shoulder and chest cavity. Collapsed lung, severed artery, fractured clavicle. Another inch to the right and she'd be in the morgue. Carlos stood by the observation window, his daughters asleep on a nearby couch, still wearing their blood-stained clothes. Will she wake up? Petrov hesitated. The next 12 hours are critical. She lost a lot of blood. The trauma to her body was extensive. But she's a fighter. I can tell. How long until she can speak? The doctor's eyes narrowed slightly. She needs rest, Mr. Gambino. Not interrogation. Carlo's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the hallway seemed to drop. How long? 48 hours. Maybe less if she's strong. Petrov removed his surgical cap. I've done my part. The rest is up to her. He left quickly, and Carlo returned to watching Mary through the glass. She lay motionless on the hospital bed, a ventilator breathing for her, tubes running from her arms, monitors tracking every weak heartbeat. Her dark hair was matted with dried blood. Her skin was gray. She looked small, vulnerable, dangerous. Sal approached cautiously. Boss, we need to talk. Privately. Carlo followed him to an empty patient room 3 doors down. What? Sal pulled out Mary's jacket, the expensive one she'd been wearing when the bullet hit. It was destroyed, shredded by metal and medical scissors, soaked through with blood. We went through her belongings. Found this. He reached into the inside pocket and pulled out the badge Carlo had already seen. Detective Mary Hernandez. Metropolitan Police Department. Organized Crime Division. The metal caught the fluorescent light, gleaming like an accusation. There's more, Sal continued grimly. He pulled out a second ID, a driver's license with Mary's face but a different name. Then a third. A credit card under yet another alias. She's not just a cop, Carlo. She's deep cover. The words hung in the air like smoke. Carlo's jaw tightened. How deep? I made some calls. Quiet ones. Sal lowered his voice. Mary Hernandez, 28 years old, decorated detective, recruited into an organized crime task force 8 months ago. She's been embedded in the financial sector. Banks, accounting firms, offshore consultants. Carlo's hands curled into fists. She was tracking your money. 1:43 a.m. Sal laid out surveillance photographs on the nurse's station counter. Images of Carlo at charity events. Outside his lawyer's office. Meeting with union officials. Entering his offshore accountant's building. She's been on you for months, Sal said. And she was good. None of our people spotted her. Not once. Carlos studied the photographs with the cold calculation of a man who'd survived 2 decades by never underestimating his enemies. What else? Sal pulled up something on his phone. Encrypted files, financial documents, transaction records. She had access to the Delaware shell companies, the Cayman accounts, the union kickbacks. He looked up, his expression grave. Carlo. She had everything. The silence that followed was suffocating. How close? Carlo's voice was barely a whisper. Her report was scheduled to go to the DA's office in 3 weeks. Federal prosecutors were already drafting indictments. Carlo closed his eyes. 3 weeks. He'd been 3 weeks away from 20 years in a federal prison. And the woman who could have put him there, who should have put him there, had taken a bullet for his daughters instead. "There's one more thing," Sal added carefully. "We found her surveillance van 2 blocks from the restaurant. Her handler's been trying to contact her for 3 hours. The feds know she's missing. They think we took her. They don't know what to think. But they're looking." Carlo returned to the observation window. Mary Hernandez lay unconscious, her chest rising and falling with mechanical precision. "She had me. She could have walked away. Let Victor shoot. Let the underworld tear itself apart. But she jumped." From the couch, Amanda stirred in her sleep, her hand reaching out instinctively toward the window, toward the woman on the other side of the glass. Carlo's phone buzzed. A text from his attorney. "Increased federal surveillance on your properties. Something's happening. Stay quiet." He looked at the badge in his hand, then at the woman who'd worn it, then at his daughters who refused to leave her side. No witnesses live. The rule was simple. Absolute. It had kept him alive, kept him powerful, kept him free. One call to Sal. One pillow over her face. One decision. Problem solved. Empire protected. Daughters safe. Carlo walked closer to the window, his reflection merging with Mary's unconscious form in the glass. His voice, when it came, was so quiet Sal barely heard it. "If she wakes up." Sal waited, his hand already moving toward his concealed weapon. Carlo's eyes stayed locked on Mary Hernandez, the cop who saved his children, the detective who'd spent 8 months destroying his empire, the woman who'd made an impossible choice. "She dies." The words tasted like ash, but they were the only words that made sense. Weren't they? 17 years earlier. Brooklyn, New York. Mary Hernandez was 11 years old when she learned what justice looked like. Or rather, what it didn't look like. Her father, Miguel Hernandez, ran a small bodega in Sunset Park. Worked 16-hour days. Never missed a bill payment. Never caused trouble. The kind of man who believed that if you followed the rules would protect you. Then one night, 3 men with guns decided his cash register was worth more than his life. The police report called it a robbery gone wrong. Mary called it murder. The men were never caught. The case went cold in 6 weeks. And 11-year-old Mary Hernandez stood at her father's funeral and made a promise. The rules should protect everyone, not just the powerful. She became a cop to keep that promise. 8 months ago. Organized Crime Division briefing. "Mary, you're our best option for this." Captain Richard Vasquez slid a file across the table. 300 pages of financial records, surveillance photos, and evidence connecting Carlo Gambino to 17 different criminal enterprises. "He's untouchable through traditional means," Vasquez continued. "Violence charges never stick. Witnesses disappear. But money leaves trails." Mary studied the photographs. Carlo at charity galas. Carlo shaking hands with politicians. Carlo leaving his lawyer's office. Carlo with his daughters. She paused on that one. 2 little girls in private school uniforms, holding their father's hands. "He has children," Mary said quietly. "So did his victims," Vasquez replied. "Gambino's empire is built on extortion, money laundering, and violence. Those girls don't change what he is." Mary knew he was right. So why did the photo bother her? 8 months, Vasquez said. Deep cover. New identity. Financial sector. You track the money, we build the case, and Carlo Gambino spends the rest of his life in prison. Mary nodded. She didn't know then that 8 months later, she'd be choosing between that promise and 2 7-year-old girls' lives. Month 3, the isolation sets in. Mary Hernandez stopped existing. In her place was Elena Torres, financial analyst for Meridian Consulting Group, a firm that specialized in offshore accounts and creative bookkeeping for clients who valued discretion. Clients like Carlo Gambino. She lived in a studio apartment in Manhattan. No friends. No relationships. No contact with her real life except encrypted check-ins with her handler every 72 hours. The loneliness was methodical, deliberate, and crushing. Some nights she'd sit in her empty apartment and wonder who she was anymore. Elena. Mary. Neither. But the work kept her focused. She traced shell companies in Delaware, offshore accounts in the Caymans, kickbacks to union officials, payments to city contractors that never made sense, until you realized they were laundering drug money through construction projects. Carlo Gambino's empire was a masterpiece of criminal finance. And Mary was taking it apart, one transaction at a time. Month 7, the children. Mary found the school tuition payments by accident. 2 recurring transfers every semester. $47,000 each. Amanda and Alicia Gambino. St. Catherine's Academy. She should have moved on. It was irrelevant to the case. Instead, she dug deeper. Report cards. Perfect attendance. Amanda excelled in English. Alicia loved math. Both were obsessed with horses. Both had lost their mother 3 years ago to cancer. They're just kids. Mary closed the file and stared at her reflection in the laptop screen. They're just kids who happen to have a monster for a father. But the thought wouldn't leave her. What happened to those girls when Carlo went to prison? Foster care. Relatives in the same criminal empire? A childhood defined by their father's sins? Not your problem. Do your job. She opened the file again and kept working. The night of the shooting, Mary's internal monologue. Half a second between life and death. Mary saw the rifle barrel shift toward the twins and her brain processed everything in crystalline clarity. Viktor Kozlovsky. Bratva enforcer. Revenge killing. Target. Not Carlo. The children. Distance. 47 yards. Too far to shoot. Options. Run. Alert Carlo. Jump. Consequence of running. 2 children die. Consequence of jumping. My case dies. Her hand moved toward her weapon, but she knew she'd never make the shot in time. The twins laughed at something Amanda said. 7 years old. They didn't choose this. And in that half second, Mary Hernandez made a choice that destroyed 8 months of work, ended her career, and possibly saved the only 2 innocent people in Carlo Gambino's entire world. She jumped. Not because I'm a hero. Because I can't be the person who watches children die. The bullet hit, and her last thought before the darkness took her was simple. I chose right. Present. St. Vincent's Hospital. 3:47 a.m. Amanda Gambino sat in a chair pulled close to Mary's bedside. Her small hand wrapped around Mary's unresponsive fingers. She hadn't left in 4 hours. Alicia stood by the window, her forehead pressed against the glass, watching the city lights. "Will she wake up?" Alicia asked, her voice small and fragile. Carlos stood in the doorway, hidden in shadow, watching his daughters keep vigil over a cop who should be their enemy. "I don't know, sweetheart," he answered honestly. "She saved us," Amanda said, her eyes never leaving Mary's face. "Daddy, she didn't even know us and she saved us." She knew exactly who you were, Carlo thought. She'd been studying us for months. But he couldn't say that. Alicia turned from the window. "If she wakes up, can she stay?" The question hit Carlo like a physical blow. Stay. His daughter wanted the undercover cop to stay? "It's complicated, Alicia." "Why?" Amanda looked up at him with eyes that saw through every careful lie he'd ever constructed. "She's good. I can tell. Can't you?" Carlo had spent 25 years reading people, spotting lies, identifying threats, and his 7-year-old daughter had just asked him a question he didn't know how to answer. "Can't you tell she's good?" He looked at Mary Hernandez, unconscious, ventilated, hunted by her own people and trapped in his hospital. "She had me. She could have destroyed everything. But when it mattered, she chose them." His ironclad rule, "No witnesses live," began to crack. Not shatter. Not yet. But crack. Amanda's head drooped onto the bed, exhaustion finally claiming her. Alicia curled up in the chair beside her sister, and Carlos stood in the doorway, watching the woman who'd saved his daughters fight for every breath, wondering if mercy was a weakness he could afford, or a debt he couldn't escape. Mary's fingers twitched. Amanda's eyes snapped open. "Daddy." She moved. Carlos stepped forward, his body tense. Mary's eyelids fluttered. Her vitals spiked on the monitor. The ventilator hissed. And slowly, impossibly, Mary Hernandez's eyes began to open. Pain came first. Sharp burning, radiating from Mary's shoulder through her entire chest like someone had replaced her bones with broken glass. Then came awareness. The steady beep of monitors. The hiss of oxygen. The antiseptic smell of hospital air mixed with something else. Cologne. Expensive. Masculine. Where am I? Mary's eyes opened slowly, her vision blurry and unfocused. The ceiling was wrong. Too industrial. Too dim. She tried to move and immediately regretted it. White-hot agony shot through her torso, stealing her breath. Gunshot. I was shot. The memory came back in fragments. The restaurant. The twins. Victor's rifle. Her choice. I jumped. Mary forced her head to turn, her neck muscles screaming in protest, and froze. 4 men stood along the wall. Not doctors. Not nurses. Armed. She recognized the posture immediately, the way they stood with weight distributed, hands close to concealed weapons, eyes scanning constantly. Security. Professional. Dangerous. Her training kicked in through the pain fog. She assessed escape routes, none. Potential weapons, nothing. Her physical condition catastrophic. I'm trapped. Then she saw the twins. Amanda and Alicia Gambino sat in chairs beside her bed, still wearing their blood-stained clothes from how long ago? Their faces exhausted but alert. Mary's breath caught. They're alive. You're awake. Amanda gasped, her small hand reaching for Mary's. And standing behind them, emerging from the shadows near the doorway, was Carlo Gambino. Their eyes met. Mary had studied this man for 8 months, watched him through surveillance lenses, analyzed his patterns, built a case that could destroy him. But she'd never been this close, never seen the way his eyes could freeze the air, never felt the weight of his attention like a physical thing. Carlo stepped forward slowly, deliberately. Mary's survival instincts screamed at her to run, to fight, to do something. But her body was broken and useless, and they both knew it. She was completely at his mercy. And men like Carlo Gambino didn't believe in mercy. The girls. Mary's voice came out as a rasp, damaged from the ventilator. She swallowed blood and tried again. Are they okay? The room went silent. Not the question anyone expected. Not where am I? Or what's happening? Or am I under arrest? Just, are they okay? Carlo studied her face with the intensity of a man searching for deception, for manipulation, for the angle. He found none. Mary's eyes had moved from his face back to the twins, scanning them for injuries with the focus of someone who genuinely cared about the answer. She's not acting, Carlo realized. She really wants to know. They're fine, he said quietly. Because of you. Mary's shoulders relaxed fractionally, and she closed her eyes. Good. That single word carried 8 months of weight. Carlo pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down, his movements controlled and predatory. When he spoke again, his voice was conversational, almost friendly, almost. Detective Mary Hernandez. He let the name hang in the air like a noose. Organized crime division. 8 months deep cover. Financial crimes investigation. Mary's eyes opened. No surprise. No denial. Just acknowledgement. You know, she said simply. I know everything. Carlo pulled her badge from his pocket and placed it on the bed between them. I know you've been tracking my offshore accounts, my shell companies, my connections to union officials and city contractors. He leaned forward. I know you were 3 weeks away from putting me in federal prison for 20 years. Mary stared at the badge, then at him. Then you know I'm dead. It wasn't a question. Just a statement of fact delivered with the calm acceptance of someone who'd already made peace with the cost of her choices. Amanda's hand tightened around Mary's. Daddy, no. Girls, Carlo interrupted gently. Go with Uncle Sal. Now. But. Now. Sal appeared from the shadows and ushered the twins out, Amanda protesting the entire way, Alicia looking back with wide, frightened eyes. The door closed. Silence. Mary and Carlo alone. You should kill me, Mary said, her voice steady despite the pain. It's the smart play. I'm a threat. I know too much. And no jury would ever convict you for killing a cop who was hunting you. I know. So why am I still breathing? Carlo stood and walked to the window, his back to her. You saved my daughters. I did my job. No. He turned, his eyes sharp. Your job was to destroy me. Your job was to stand back and let the Bratva handle their revenge. Your job was to protect your case, not my children. Mary said nothing. You threw away 8 months of work, Carlo continued. You exposed your cover. You destroyed your investigation. You took a bullet meant for a criminal's children." His voice dropped. "Why?" "Because they're 7 years old." The answer was so simple, so honest, that it hit harder than any elaborate explanation. Carlo returned to the chair. "My men want you dead," he said bluntly. "My lawyers want you dead. Every logical part of my brain wants you dead. But my daughters refuse to leave your side. They've been here for 6 hours. They call you brave. They call you good." He leaned closer. "And I can't kill someone my children love. Not in front of them. Maybe not at all." Mary processed this information through the pain fog. "So what happens now?" Carlo's expression hardened into something colder, more calculated. "You have a choice, detective." He stood, his shadow falling across her broken body. "You disappear. New identity. New city. New life. I have people who can make it happen, so deep even the feds won't find you. You heal. You live. And you never speak my name again." Mary stared at him. "And if I refuse?" Carlo's hand moved to his pocket, not reaching for a weapon, just a gesture. But the implication was clear. His voice, when it came, was quiet and absolutely final. "Then you don't leave this room alive." The silence in the hospital room stretched like a blade. Mary stared at Carlo Gambino, the man she'd spent 8 months trying to destroy, now offering her a lifeline she never asked for. Disappear or die. Carlo moved to the window, his voice taking on the tone of a businessman negotiating a contract. Clinical. Precise. "Here's how it works," he began. "In 48 hours, Mary Hernandez dies in this hospital. Complications from her injuries. A tragic hero who gave her life saving 2 innocent children." Mary's jaw tightened, but she listened. "Your department gets a closed casket. A flag. A posthumous medal if they want to feel good about themselves." He turned to face her. "But you, the real you, wake up 3 states away with a new name, new documents, and enough money to start over. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere safe." "Witness protection," Mary said flatly. "Better than witness protection. My people don't leave paper trails." Carlo's eyes were cold. "You'll have an identity so clean even the FBI couldn't crack it. A backstory. Employment history. Credit rating. Everything you need to vanish completely. And in exchange, you never speak about me. You never testify. You never come back." He stepped closer. "You take the gift of life I'm giving you, and you disappear." Mary closed her eyes, her mind racing despite the pain medication dulling her thoughts. "He's offering me everything. A new life. Freedom. Survival." All she had to do was walk away from 8 months of work. Walk away from justice. Walk away from the promise she'd made to her father's memory 17 years ago. The rules should protect everyone. But what rule protected her now? She'd broken cover, destroyed evidence, made herself a liability to her own department. The feds would ask questions she couldn't answer. Carlo's lawyers would tear apart any testimony. And without the case files, which Carlo's people had surely destroyed by now, she had nothing. Maybe he's right. Maybe this is the only way I survive. Mary opened her eyes. Carlo watched her with the patience of a predator who already knew he'd won. I want my badge back, she said quietly. No. Then I refuse. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Carlo's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his posture. A coiling tension, like a spring being compressed. You're refusing my protection. I'm refusing to run. Mary met his eyes, her voice gaining strength despite the pain. I didn't save your daughters for a favor, Mr. Gambino. I didn't jump in front of that bullet expecting a reward or a deal or a new life in witness protection. Then why? Because they're children. The words came out raw and honest. Because I took an oath to protect people. All people. Even the daughters of a man I was trying to put in prison. Carlo stared at her like she was speaking a foreign language. You're a fool. Maybe. You think your department will take you back? You destroyed an 8-month investigation. You exposed yourself. You're a burned asset, detective. Nobody wants you now. I know. Then what do you want? Carlo's voice rose, frustration bleeding through his control. You're lying in a hospital bed because you chose wrong. You threw away your career, your case, maybe your life. For what? So you could die with a clear conscience. Mary's hand moved to her chest, pressing against the bandages covering her wound. I didn't choose wrong, she said softly. I chose Amanda and Alicia. And I'd do it again. The honesty of it hit Carlo like a physical blow. Behind him, Sal stepped forward, his hand moving toward his concealed weapon. 2 other guards tensed, reading the room's energy shift. This was the moment when Carlo Gambino typically gave the order. The moment when problems were eliminated. The moment when mercy ended. Mary saw it coming. She'd been a cop long enough to recognize the look in Sal's eyes, the cold calculation of a man about to commit murder. She didn't flinch. At least I saved them. Boss, Sal said quietly. Say the word. Carlo's hand rose. No. The door burst open. Amanda Gambino stood in the doorway, Alicia right behind her, both girls having slipped past Uncle Sal's distraction. Daddy, no. Amanda ran into the room and threw herself between Carlo and Mary's bed. You can't hurt her. She saved us. Amanda, go back to. No. The 7-year-old's voice cracked with desperation. She's good, Daddy. Can't you see? She's good and she saved us, and if you hurt her you're. She couldn't finish the sentence. But Carlo heard it anyway. You're the monster everyone says you are. Alicia stepped forward, her voice quiet but steady. Please don't, Daddy. Carlo looked at his daughters, their tear-stained faces, their fierce protectiveness, their absolute certainty that Mary Hernandez deserved to live. Then he looked at Mary, still meeting his eyes with that infuriating calm acceptance of death. The silence stretched for an eternity. Finally, Carlo lowered his hand. Everyone out, he said quietly. Now. Sal hesitated. Boss. I said out. The guards filed out silently. Sal followed, his expression unreadable. Amanda and Alicia clung to each other in the corner, refusing to leave. Carlo ran a hand through his hair, looking suddenly exhausted. You have 48 hours, he told Mary. To heal, to think, to decide if dying for your principles is really worth it. And then we finish this conversation. He walked to the door, his daughters following. But before leaving, he turned back one last time. "The feds are looking for you, detective. They know you're missing. They're closing in." His voice carried a warning. "And when they find you here in my hospital under my protection, they won't see a hero. They'll see a dirty cop." The door closed. Mary lay back against the pillows, her body shaking with adrenaline and pain. 48 hours. Outside, through the window, she could see red and blue lights reflecting off nearby buildings. Police lights. Getting closer. 41 hours later. The federal agents arrived at 6:47 a.m. 3 black SUVs. FBI badges. Warranted authority to search for a missing officer. They were polite, professional, and absolutely relentless. Carlo watched from the fourth-floor window as they spoke with hospital administration. Saw the way the suits gestured. The way they pulled out photographs. Mary's face, multiple angles, multiple identities. They're hunting her. Sal appeared beside him. They're requesting access to patient records. Security footage. Trauma admissions from 3 nights ago. Stall them. "Boss, they have federal warrants." "We can't." "I said stall them." Carlo's voice was ice. "I need 2 hours." 2 hours for what? Carlo didn't answer. Because the truth was impossible to say out loud. 2 hours to decide if I'm saving her or killing her. Mary's hospital room. 7:15 a.m. Mary sat upright for the first time in 2 days, her chest screaming in protest. The ventilator was gone. The 4 remained. She was weak, pale, but conscious and coherent. And terrified. She'd heard the commotion, recognized the federal presence, knew what it meant. They found me. Her handler would be with them. Captain Vasquez. Maybe even internal affairs. Questions she couldn't answer. Accusations she couldn't defend against. Why were you in a mafia-controlled hospital? Why didn't you call for backup? Whose side are you on, detective? The door opened. Carlo entered alone, his expression unreadable. He sat in the chair beside her bed, the same chair his daughters had occupied for 2 days straight. "The feds are here," he said simply. "I know. They're looking for you." "I know." Silence. Carlo studied her face, searching for something. Fear, maybe, or guilt, or the crack that would justify what he should do. Kill her. It's the smart move. The safe move. But all he saw was exhaustion and acceptance. "I could make you disappear," he said quietly. "Right now. Before they reach this floor. One phone call and you'd be in the morgue with a Jane Doe tag. They'd never find you." "I know. You're not even going to fight me?" Mary's laugh was bitter and pained. "What would be the point? You've already won, Mr. Gambino." "Have I?" She gestured weakly at the badge sitting on the bedside table, the one Carlo had returned to her the night before, still stained with her blood. "You kept your empire. I destroyed my career. Your daughters are safe. My case is gone." She met his eyes. "You got everything you wanted. So yes, you won." Carlo picked up the badge, turning it over in his hands. Detective Mary Hernandez. Shield number 4782. "You know what's interesting, detective?" He set the badge back down. "In 25 years, No one has ever made me reconsider who I am. Not cops. Not rivals. Not even my own conscience. He stood, walking to the window. But my 7-year-old daughters looked at me 3 nights ago like I was the monster under their bed. Because I was about to kill the woman who saved their lives. Mary said nothing. So I made some calls, Carlo continued. Quiet ones. Offshore accounts closed. Shell companies dissolved. The union contracts that you were tracking? Terminated. The construction kickbacks? Gone. Mary's eyes widened. You're dismantling your operation? Parts of it. He turned to face her. The parts you would have exposed. The parts that made me a target worth killing. His voice hardened. My daughters will never be collateral damage again. Why are you telling me this? Because you earned it. Carlo moved toward the door. You didn't save them for a deal or a favor or a new life. You saved them because it was right, even when it cost you everything. He paused at the doorway. So I'm returning the favor, Detective. 8:03 a.m. Amanda and Alicia entered quietly, Uncle Sal hovering protectively behind them. They'd been cleaned up, new clothes, hair brushed, no more blood, but their eyes still carried the weight of what they'd witnessed. Amanda approached the bed first, her small hand reaching for Mary's. You're really leaving? Her voice cracked. Mary nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Will we ever see you again? No, Mary thought. Your father is letting me walk, but I can never come back. I don't know, sweetheart. Alicia stepped forward, holding something carefully in both hands. Mary's badge. You dropped this, Alicia said softly, placing it in Mary's palm. We kept it safe for you. Mary's fingers closed around the metal, still stained with her own blood. My badge. My oath. My identity. Amanda threw her arms around Mary's neck, gentle, careful of the injuries, but fierce with emotion. Thank you for saving us, she whispered. Mary hugged her back, tears finally breaking through her control. Thank you for being worth saving. Alicia joined the embrace, and for a moment, Mary held Carlo Gambino's daughters and wondered how something so right could come from something so wrong. Carlo appeared in the doorway. He didn't speak. Didn't need to. The message was clear. Time to go. Sal helped Mary to her feet. Slow, painful, but possible. She was dressed in civilian clothes someone had provided. Her badge went in her pocket. Her gun was gone, probably destroyed. She walked toward the door, each step agony, each breath a victory. Carlo stood aside, letting her pass. Their eyes met one final time. Detective, he said quietly. Mr. Gambino. My daughters will never forget what you did. Mary paused. Neither will I. She walked down the corridor, Sal leading the way, the twins watching from the doorway. The elevator descended. The lobby doors opened. And Mary Hernandez, broken, burned but alive, stepped out into the morning sunlight. Federal agents were still arguing with hospital administration 50 yards away. By the time they turned around, she was already gone. 6 months later, Mary Hernandez returned to duty on a Tuesday. The precinct erupted in applause when she walked through the doors, her left arm still in a brace, her gait slightly uneven, a thin scar running from her collarbone to her shoulder visible above her collar. Captain Vasquez met her at her desk with a handshake and something that looked almost like respect. "Welcome back, Detective." "Thank you, sir." "We need to debrief. Your report is already filed," Mary interrupted quietly. "Everything I could remember. Everything I was willing to say." The official report was a masterpiece of careful omission. Detective Mary Hernandez, working undercover surveillance, witnessed an assassination attempt on 2 civilian minors. She intervened, sustaining life-threatening injuries. The suspects escaped. The children survived. No mention of Carlo Gambino. No mention of the hospital. No mention of the choice she made or the 48 hours she spent under the protection of the man she'd been hunting. Just a hero cop who took a bullet for 2 innocent kids. The media loved it. The department loved it. And Mary hated every second of the lie. But it was the truth that mattered. I saved them. That part was real. Organized Crime Division. 3 weeks after Mary's return, the Gambino investigation officially closed due to insufficient evidence and compromised operational security. The case files were sealed. The offshore accounts Mary had been tracking vanished. Shell companies dissolved. Financial trails erased with surgical precision. It was as if 8 months of work had never existed. Captain Vasquez called Mary into his office. "Someone burned our case," he said bluntly. "From the inside or the outside, I don't know. But every lead you developed is gone." Mary kept her expression neutral. "Understood, sir. You spent 8 months on this, Hernandez. You almost died on this." He leaned forward. "And you're telling me you have nothing to add?" "I have everything to add. I could tell you that Carlo Gambino saved my life. I could tell you that his daughters are the reason I'm still breathing. I could tell you that sometimes the line between justice and mercy is written in blood." But instead, Mary simply said, "No, sir. Nothing to add." Vasquez studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "You're a hell of a cop, Hernandez. But you're also a terrible liar." He didn't press further. Some truths were too complicated for official reports. Carlo's world. The same 6 months. The Gambino empire changed overnight. Quietly. Permanently. No more children near the business. No more families at risk. No more using loved ones as leverage or targets. Carlo issued the order personally, and it rippled through the underworld like a shockwave. Children are off limits. Always. Rivals noticed. Allies questioned. But no one challenged it. Because Carlo Gambino had become something more dangerous than a ruthless kingpin. He'd become a man with a line he would never cross. And everyone knew it. Amanda and Alicia never returned to St. Catherine's Academy. Carlo enrolled them in a school upstate. Quiet, secure, far from the city's violence. They asked about Mary constantly. "Will she visit? Can we call her? Is she okay?" Carlo always gave the same answer. "She's safe." And that's what matters. He never told them that Mary Hernandez had been offered witness protection and refused. Never told them she'd walked back into the very system that had abandoned her. Never told them that her choice, jumping in front of that bullet, had fundamentally changed who he was. But late at night, when the city was quiet and his daughters were asleep, Carlo would sit in his study and think about the cop who'd saved them. The enemy who became something else entirely. She chose my daughters over her badge. And I let her live. Maybe there's redemption in that. For both of us. 1 year later. A chance encounter. Mary sat in a coffee shop in Brooklyn, off-duty, reading case files for a new investigation. Her shoulders still ached when it rained. The scar tissue made certain movements difficult. Physical therapy helped, but she'd never be the same. Physically or otherwise. The door chimed. Mary glanced up automatically. Old habits, and froze. Amanda and Alicia Gambino stood in the doorway with their father. The girls spotted her first. Amanda gasped. Alicia's face lit up. But before they could run to her, Carlo's hand on their shoulders stopped them. He met Mary's eyes across the coffee shop. A moment of recognition, understanding, mutual respect born from impossible circumstances. Carlo nodded once, a gesture that said everything. Thank you. I remember. We're even. Mary nodded back. Then Carlo guided his daughters to a table on the opposite side of the shop. They ordered hot chocolate and pastries. Amanda kept sneaking glances toward Mary, smiling. Mary finished her coffee and left. She didn't look back. Some debts couldn't be repaid. Some choices couldn't be undone. Some lines, once crossed, changed you forever. Present day. Mary's apartment. Mary stood before her bedroom mirror, getting ready for another shift. She fastened her badge to her belt, shield number 4782, still bearing the faintest discoloration from blood that would never completely wash away. Her reflection stared back, older, harder, scarred. I destroyed an 8-month investigation. I saved 2 children. I took a bullet for a criminal's daughters. I kept my oath to protect and serve. She touched the scar on her shoulder. One choice. One bullet. One line I refused to cross. People said she was a hero. People said she was a fool. People said she'd thrown away her career for nothing. But Mary Hernandez knew the truth. She'd saved 2 7-year-old girls who didn't choose their father's world. And sometimes that was enough. Final reflection. Some people save lives to enforce the law. They wear badges and carry guns and believe in justice above all else. Others break the law to save lives. They operate in shadows and make impossible choices and protect what matters most. But once in a while, once in a rare, impossible, extraordinary while, someone does both. Someone stands at the intersection of right and wrong and chooses the only thing that matters. Humanity. Mary Hernandez took a bullet for Carlo Gambino's daughters. Carlo Gambino let the cop who hunted him walk away alive. 2 enemies. 1 moment. 1 choice that changed everything. And somewhere in the city, on opposite sides of an invisible line, both of them carried the weight of what they'd done. The scars they'd earned. The mercy they'd shown. And the truth that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is save someone you were supposed to destroy. Thanks for watching till the very end. If this story moved you, hit like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'll be dropping another unforgettable story tomorrow, so make sure you don't miss it.